Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Thomas the Tank Engine, Thomas the Tank Engine 2, and Thomas the Tank Engine Pinball.
It's our Thomas the Tank Engine Adult Thomas Fan Spectacular.
That's right.
You know, they've got that. You've heard of My Little Pony, right? You've got the Bronies, right?
Right.
There should be an adult name for the Thomas the Tank Engine fans.
Maybe that's just what they're known as. Adult Thomas the Tank Engine
no
fans. Because that's like for Lego, it's AFOL. Adult fan of Lego. That's the official acronym.
So this could be ATOL.
ATOL. Isn't that sounds like a Game
It's one
of
of those
Thrones character.
It's one of those Mr. Science Theater dollar movies rental things from the 80s. ATOL the Wanderer.
Right.
I think we just made a new. Here we go.
There we go. So let's just jump right into it. We got a packed show. Tell us a little bit about the story of Thomas the Tank Engine, Aaron. But just without the games, give us a quick summary of the world.
Well, Thomas is obviously for those that don't have children, right, or are of the age where they would have passed which was me. I guess people my age. Thomas, I was exposed to only when my kid got into it.
Yeah, I think maybe the people that are your age that know about it are the people that were exposed to it through the books. Right?
I was waiting for you to insult me violently with some sort of hideous thing. So Thomas the Tank Engine. It's a show about trains at on an island called Sodor, the mysterious, large, beautiful island of Sodor. Mm-hmm. It was based on a book series called the Railway Series. It was done by a guy named Reverend Wilbert Awdry. Wilbert, an unusual. I don't know how unusual Wilbert is. What about the short is that? Wilby?
Wilbert? Yeah, I don't know.
It's a very popular show. I assume it's still popular with kids. It's been around for a good while. The show chronicles the adventures of Thomas the Tank Engine as the head guy. Although there are plenty of other engines on this, and there's trains, there's cranes, there's planes. I didn't even mean that to rhyme. There's there's like boxcars. There's living helicopters that talk. There's
And what makes this unusual is that in addition to all of these talking vehicles, there are also normal humans, and the humans interact with the talking things.
That's right. Really the only named human that I recall. Now in the movies and later on, they added some guys. What is Sir Topham Hatt in America? I don't know. I guess I know in England and maybe the rest of the world he's called the fat controller.
That's right.
Which he's the guy that runs the railway.
And the thing is that in the early books and maybe even in the early TV series, the guy, the Reverend, the author he wanted all of the trains to be very, very accurate, which is cool because kids get to learn about real steam trains. And also he was very demanding that the trains could never run by themselves. They always needed to have their driver in the car. Now these days you never see that, but in the books they were always there. So the humans were always part of the story.
I always went on the assumption. Well, the funny thing about the show is even the good guy, I guess everyone's sort of a good guy. There are trains that are real mischievous, and there are trains that are pretty nice. But often they do have people running them, presumably, but they just do what they want.
Right.
And the people don't really seem to care. They just I don't know if they just sit in them or it's always been kind of a gray area.
It's hard to tell. I think that they want to keep the drivers involved, but what is their role? You never really know.
Yeah. The funny thing about this show is, it doesn't. I'm not gonna say it's got a dark side, but it's an odd show. To fully summarize it, the trains all have human faces on the fronts, and and in the old version of the show, everything is done with just
model trains.
Yeah, well, and it's all done without the aid of computers. Okay, so the train is mad. It's got a frowny face. Well, maybe it gets cheers up later. And next time you see it, it'll have a happy face. It never changes its face during the shot. They go in and put the new face on it. The island of Sodor is portrayed very beautifully. It's got castles. It's got beaches. It's got boardwalks. It's got mines, mountains. It's got everything. It's just a heck of an island, this thing. And
Sodor, Sodor, it's a heck of a night.
yeah, no. And hospitals and schools, the whole 9 yards. So these guys go around and just do all the menial tasks. Like there's several of them. Thomas, of course, he'll do a lot of passenger transport. Percy does stuff like mail route and delivers milk, huge tankers of milk, which we had debated about that on the live stream earlier. But so you can imagine that this is a good title for kids. They got a lot that kids like trains. They merchandise the hell out of this. I've spent a ton of money on this Thomas stuff. Mm-hmm. My kid had Thomas comforter, Thomas sheets, Thomas curtains, Thomas
was Thomas
toys.
Always his guy?
He loved Thomas. That was his guy. He was the perfect kid for this show. He just took it hook, line, and sinker. I've seen all the Thomases. You know, we talked about it. They're narrated by several different luminaries. Mm-hmm. The first was Ringo Starr, which I'm a big Ringo fan, as you know. And then you've got George Carlin, Alec Baldwin. Seems like there's a couple more that I'm missing in there, but it's like there's one guy I never heard of that wasn't super famous, but there has been a ton of guys. There's been like 4 or 5 guys that have done the narration for it. And so, you know, popular show. So, of course, when you've got a popular kid show and you've got merchandising, sure, why not have some video games, right? So, and the Amiga was right in the mix. I guess right place at the right time. And it got 3 separate Thomas games, and we're going to look at them all. So, the first one we're going to look at is Thomas the Tank Engine. It was a game released in 1992 by an outfit called. It was developed by an outfit called Peak Star Software. Buddy, you ever heard of Peak Star?
You know, I have not, and I would wager to guess that maybe their output wasn't great.
Well, they had some titles.
Okay.
Now, we've not checked out any of these titles. But they've had some titles that we're probably going to hit. They had F1 World Championship Edition.
Oh, okay.
They had Moonshine Racers, which is a game I've heard about.
That sounds interesting.
I've never played it. It sounds right up our alley.
Right,
How have we not played that? They had Road Rash.
Really?
Right? Yeah.
I take everything I said about Peak Star
They
back.
did that for EA. Now, I haven't played a Road Rash on the Amiga. I've played it on
Genesis.
I played it on 3DO.
Yeah. I remember that was one of the big 3DO
They had
titles.
a thing called Sooty and Sweep, which I'd be surprised if that was another character that was pulled out of maybe a British. This thing, and then they did this and its sequel, which we'll get to later. So again, this game came out in '92. It was a 1-disc special. Played on the OCS, ECS, the usual stuff. Bo, you have played this now a couple times, so why don't you let everyone know how this game works and what you do?
Well, you are Thomas, and you have. I think that there might be 6 sort of stages in this game that you can choose at any point. And what you are trying to do is you're trying to pick up a car of goods or services, and
or do services at least,
and
you can work it in,
and deliver them to the end point on the stage. And so the stages are all sort of side scrolling and sort of a pseudo isometric perspective, where it's kind of top down a little bit, like 3/4 perspective, but it's definitely side scrolling. You're going from left to right. The graphics I think they're actually really beautiful. The trains are really rendered well. They're rendered accurately as far as the number of wheels and things like that. The thing that this game runs into as far as the downfall is the extreme difficulty of the game. The other trains are also out on the tracks, and they are trying actively to ram themselves into you. And
even your best friend, it repeatedly tries to kill you.
And it may seem like they're just sort of running random paths, but there will be times where they'll literally back you back to the beginning of the stage. You'll have to, they'll run into, and you just have to take advantage of the short amount of time that you're invincible to get past them, so you can move on with your task. So it's kind of weird. But there are things that you can collect around the stages that give you bonus points. There's like little wrenches or buckets of water. And those add to your score. There are also bonus stages where you race against another car, and the races are basically just button mash fests where you bash on your fire button as fast as you can.
It's like one button track and field.
Exactly. But for each stage, you're either you're delivering medical supplies, or you're delivering oil, or there's any number of things that you can deliver. And I guess,
passengers.
Yeah, and so it's a neat game. It's a neat concept. It's not something that, when you think about making a Thomas game that's reflective of the show, the theme of these trains, especially Thomas, he's a really useful engine. And this is, you're doing sort of real world tasks and completing them. The only thing that is not realistic about this is the way that the other trains, trying to destroy you. But anyway, I actually thought this game was pretty good. What did you think?
I didn't think that. The game has some things going for it. You mentioned that the graphics look pretty sharp. They do. I like the fact that they had enough common sense to go back and get some of the other engines from the show, and they're rendered as well, and they look nice. And Toby and Percy and some of the other guys, which is cool. I mean, if you watch the show, it's got a cool scrolling. It's parallax scrolling, which is nice. All that said, this is a game for kids, and I'm an adult, believe it or not, and I can't do well at this game. And I think to myself, if I am not having any luck with this, how well is a child going to do? My guess is not so good.
That's probably the biggest fault that I can find with this is that if this game was in fact marketed to children, and Thomas fans are not like 12-year-olds. Thomas skews younger on the age range. You're talking about 3 to 6 or 3 to 7, something like that is really your prime Thomas age. And this game, now, in its defense, you do sort of get unlimited tries at this thing. When you die, you get sent back to the beginning, and if you continuously press left, eventually, you will figure it out. But it's difficult to switch between tracks. It's something that takes some fine motor control. So I agree with you, Aaron. I think that marketing this as a kid's game was a misstep.
Now, that said, another problem I've got is you've got an awesome license here. Thomas the Tank Engine, and because the show's about adventure, about seeing all these different sights and all the cool stuff that trains can do. I mean, like I said, the Sodor is rendered quite beautifully in the show. This game is a sprint, effectively, which, I mean, there aren't too many shows where you're just going crazy like this. I think it would have been a lot more fun to have made this like a outrun with trains, branching type thing. Well, let me rephrase that.
That sounds like the worst game ever.
No, hold on. Here, no, I don't mean Outrun the Amiga version. I mean just something where an adventure game where you can go out and take. Like, I want to explore an area. How about that? I want an area to explore. Sodor has mountains. Sodor has mines. Sodor has castles. Sodor has cities. It would have been nice if there was something like, okay, how about this? How about a space taxi type thing where you can just go to these different areas and pick stuff up and deliver passengers back, or like a crazy taxi on rails. Something like that would have been cool. You know what I'm saying? But you're not buying any of this, huh?
Well, I think you're asking a lot, because there's, Space Taxi on the C64, like, I wouldn't necessarily call that a kid's game either.
Well, I know, but I'm saying if you're going to make a game and you're just going to tailor it toward not kids, why not make a good game and tailor it toward not kids?
I think that this is a good game. I think if this was not marketed for kids, I think it's something different.
What is fun about it, though, Bud? I mean,
I like it. I like the way
guys just randomly run you over.
I like the way that you switch the tracks. I like being on rails. There's not a whole lot of games that you play on rails like this. There's an arcade game, and I can't think what it's called, but I've got it on my main machine, that's sort of like this, except it's more of a top-down thing. Have you ever played that before, where you're on a
specific on that?
Well, there's not too many arcade games where you're on rails and you're a train.
Yeah, I'll grant you that.
But anyway, I guess we'll just disagree on this one.
I
didn't like it. I
don't super hate it. It's just I like that left a little bit to be desired.
Okay.
Now, But we can't leave this game without talking about the memory challenge. That's part of it. Did you ever try the memory challenge?
I didn't. I didn't try the memory challenge.
I did. The memory challenge is your classic. There's a big ton of cards or thing of hidden things on the screen, and you pick a couple, and then you pick a couple more, and you're trying to match them up.
Okay.
It's basically nothing. However, it did prove to me that also, like this, that I am not good at that either because my memory's crap. So I don't know if kids would have better luck with that than I did, but I didn't have much luck, and it's certainly not much fun, and it's certainly not. It's not creative, that's for sure.
It sounds like something that they added on.
They tacked on, probably as a bullet point on the back of the box.
Yeah.
Now, surprisingly, this game didn't get a lot of reviews. I found one, courtesy of our friends at Lemon Amiga. Or actually, this was Hall of Light. And it
Hall
was
of Light, which we did find out it's run by the folks over at the English Amiga board, so there is a connection there.
Oh, is it?
Dreamcatcher filled us in on that.
I did not know that actually. Well, good. It's a Hall of Light's a tremendous resource. We've talked about it in the past, and I always like that particular site. Anyway, there's one review on here for this game, and it was from I believe the German magazine Amiga Joker, right? They were not fond of this game.
They were not kind to it.
They hated it a lot more than I did. They gave it 49%. So they dropped the hammer on this particular one. And it's if you're into Thomas, you've got an Amiga. Like I set Luke down in front of this, and he fiddled with it. Mm-hmm. He liked the pinball more, which we'll get to, but he fiddled with it. It just was hard for him to get, and I will admit I should have way back. eBay on this particular item. We'll just go in order as we're doing them.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There's nothing in the States. Again, this is another game I don't think got an American release.
Mm-hmm. The only copy was this in Germany, the one that you saw.
I didn't look to where it was. It's in the UK.
Okay.
And it was going for around $30 US.
Maybe one of those rare but not extremely desirable.
Yeah. Now the funny thing about these Thomas games that we'll get into, there are people collect Thomas stuff.
Sure.
And so the prices can get absolutely crazy mad. So when you've got a game like this, and it sold well from what I read. So what would you do naturally? You would naturally, it's time for a sequel to the sucker. And sequel we had. And so they came out with Thomas the Tank Engine 2, a.k.a. Thomas's Big Race. And this came out in 93, so a year later this was put out. This was developed by Peakstar Software. Peakstar, same crew. So, Boat, we just played this on our live stream. And I have played this one more than the first one. But give us a breakdown of what's changed and what has improved and what hasn't improved.
Well, they basically took the first game and they made it a two-player game. So now you can race against another person or against the computer, and you're trying to get to the end of the track. Other than that, it's pretty much the exact same. I don't know if you know when we go this far back, when we talk about it today, we'd say the two games use the same engine. I don't know if engines really existed back then, but it's the same sort of backgrounds. The track layouts are the same. It's the same perspective. We couldn't play a whole lot of this game because when you back into certain zones where I guess they're like bonus things, the game locks up, and so it's unfortunate because I feel like we might not be seeing all that there is to see in this. But overall, I think that, as far as my thoughts in the game, this is a weaker title than the first game. It's basically just a race. I don't think that, maybe you do later on, but I didn't pick up anything like pick up cars or anything like that, and there really isn't a story. It's mostly just trying to get to the end. What did you think, Aaron?
Well, I think that the fact that they went with the split screen is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Not an easy task on the Amiga, really. In those days, on anything. I mean, it's neat. This is a game that I enjoy if we're playing it together.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. Would it be as much fun by myself? Probably not. Like I said, at least having just killed the first one, I'll say that the first one had more of an adventure element than this does. This has certain tracks. I will say that they gives you a choice of I think there's 8 different engines to play, which that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's a good variety.
Yeah, that's true.
The backgrounds are okay. Again, when you've got that split screen going, you don't see the horizon, you don't see the mountains, the parallax scrolling.
Now, I mean, it looks like the backgrounds are a little bit more detailed than in the first game.
The immediate backgrounds.
Yeah, the immediate backgrounds. They've introduced a fuel mechanic. It's odd because you don't actually refuel. You just go to the water pump and you stand under the water pump, and that acts as your fuel. But you're trying to balance your fuel. It's a little bit more forgiving when you run into another train. You don't have to start completely over. It just slows you down because again everything is just trying to make your way to the end here.
I like that it keeps records. That's pretty cool. To me, this is a more appealing title. It's more playable to me. All right, but again, you're just racing. There are different tracks. It's funny. The backstory of this seems sort of stupid. Basically, like the Thomas, and I believe it's who's the big old grumpy engine, Gordon. They're fighting about who's the best engine, and of course the fat controller's like, "Well, we'll figure that out. We big bull, we'll put you on a race." Like this race, as we watch the live stream, Birdie coming to get Percy. What a riveting race that's going to be!
It reminds me of when they have the the baseball player, the horse, and the motorcycle run around the bases all at the same time.
And then poor Birdie's got to go down the road. And he's got you got to negotiate the roads.
Yeah,
I mean,
now it is neat how if you were playing this 2-player and one player would be on the road and the other one would be on the rails.
The flip side of that is cars just back up into you.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the road is the track. It's just without the track. I mean, it's still the traffic just goes helter-skelter. You can't go anywhere you want.
Yeah, it's still the same sort of game, but it is, I mean, it's variety that they didn't have to put in there.
I guess, but I mean, how many times do I have to see these cars back down the road? I will say they've got the railroad crossings, which and if you violate certain railroad stoppage signs, the fat controller will appear on the screen to give you the business. He don't like that. Despite the fact this is a freaking race and he booked this sucker. You told us to race, you punk. But here we are. There's a British Bobby telling you to stop the stoplight. So I think this one's more fun. But then again, they're not that fun in the first place, are they? This one, I didn't see anyone selling one on eBay. So they're not up. I mean, that's not really something that's, I don't know. Maybe just right now, there are not any out there. This one did get reviewed by a lot of magazines. And Amiga Action, 84%. Not bad.
Not bad.
Amiga Action is reputable. Amiga Computing, 90%. Amiga Format, 7 out of 10, not bad. Amiga Power, 68%. The One, 56%. Of course, some of those might be later reviews. But it was a little better. I thought it was okay. It was still not that much fun. It was still too freaking hard. The memory game, where'd that go?
Yeah, they decided it wasn't necessary.
That right there's a 10-point deduction, in my opinion. The sound's okay. I mean, it's...
Well, the song is playing.
Oh, yeah. Gotta have the song.
And hey,
I'm
how
sick
many
of that song.
how many Amiga games have we played and they give you an option to turn the music off? I mean, to me, there are so many lazy Amiga programmers that didn't put sound in their games at all that whenever there is background music, I feel like that's a plus.
It just occurred to me what a bit of you could use this engine to make this a more fun game. All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
You don't control the train. You control the track. You control switches. You see, and the thing scrolls ahead. You see the obstacles and you plan ahead to switch the track that the train's on to avoid the obstacles. Now that would be a fun game. It would be for kids. That's a good sort of training thing for kids. Using logic. That would be a good game. Okay. So I submit that would be a better game than either one of these Thomas the Tank Engine games.
Okay.
You can't deny that one. I'll give you the Outrun idea. That may have been a little south. But
I think there's much more merit in that.
Thank you. Wow. Thanks a lot. Let's move along, shall we? So, the Amigos, we're all about the pinball, right? We get deep in there to find you the finest pinball games. We did Pinball Prelude a while back, but that wasn't nearly enough. We had to go and find some more. So since this is the Thomas the Tank Engine episode, we have delved deep into Thomas the Tank Engine pinball. This was a pinball game released in '95, so this came a couple years after the Thomas the Tank Engine, the big race. This was this only allows one player, which I thought was weird. I thought that was strange. This was a CD32 release.
Yeah.
Which strikes me as odd. But it looks good. So, ish. It looks okay, So
it looks just as good as most pinball games do on the Amiga.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't look as good as Slam Tilt, but it looks just as good as Dreams, Illusions.
I don't think it doesn't look as nice as Pinball Prelude. I don't know, but it's a different type of pinball.
It's a different sort of art style.
This is a 4-table game. Now, me and Bo have had a good while to fool with this. I believe that you did an Amigos play on this a long time ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
One of the first ones we did. Mm-hmm. Well, you did it, and this was way back. So you've got standard pinball rules. You've got 4 tables. Each table is named for a different track. Now, I fiddled with this and found out that these. That screen, did that look the same? We're on the video podcast. We're watching one of the videos. I don't know which is Zeus or one of the guys.
This is Retro Gaming Network.
And their title screen looks a little bit different. Their screen that they were just on looks.
I don't remember the Fat Controller sitting at that computer. Was he? And I just didn't. I wasn't.
I don't remember it either. But when you start this game, you see the Fat Controller. He's at it again. He's got pictures of.
He's always the mastermind behind all these games.
Sir Topham Hatt. He's got four different engines there, and you can pick each one has a table. So the first table, of course, we did was Thomas. Thomas has when these tables come up, they look pretty good. I think the scrolling is nice. Mm-hmm. It's standard stuff, and these were presumably marketed for kids back in the day. They have lots of flashing lights, and each pinball machine is a little bit different. So we're gonna grade them on each one on their own merits. So. What did you think of this first table?
I thought it was fine. I mean, it's got your standard. It's the most standard layout, I think, where you have sort of a loop around that the ball can travel through if you hit it up in the top. It's got 3 bumpers, sort of at the 1 o'clock position. It's got a bunch of drop targets that you can hit that light lights. All of these tables, they're like we talked about, they're designed for kids, so there's no out lanes. The only way you can lose a ball is through the middle. But that said, it is still easy to lose balls because of the main problem that all of these tables have, which is that your ball feels like it weighs 1,000,000 pounds. It's just very, very difficult to shoot the ball to the upper part of the playfield at all, even when you're trying to. And a lot of times you'll try and really hit the ball at the end of the flipper to get it up there, and you'll end up losing a ball because you don't do it right.
I'd be remiss if I don't mention that this game was put out by an outfit called Spidersoft. Spidersoft only did a few games. They did a game called Cliffhanger for Psygnosis, but the 2 games that are more pertinent to this conversation are this they did this, obviously, Thomas the Tank and Pinball. And they did a game in the same year called Pinball Mania. And we've not played Pinball Mania, but word on the street is that it suffers from a similar problem, which is a really heavy ball. This game, as Boat said, I had the exact same experience. We went in and tinkered with the I will say, to their credit, they gave you the option to tinker with the level of the field, play field. And while it made a little difference, it didn't make enough difference to make it work. This table has no multi-ball. In fact, none of the tables have any multi-ball. They have the scoreboard is not animated, or like if you're used to the Pinball Fantasies, Pinball Dreams, this is none of that. This is just at the bottom of the screen. There's a cloud with the player and the score in it. Now, just looking, it's funny, the version that we played, the title screen where you do your options, that did look a little bit different. And I noticed this one had an option for multiple players, which I didn't see that in the one we just watched. So we may have an older version of this that we're using. So I guess that's a good thing. You can have multiple players on it. But this particular table is boring to me. As nice as it looks, and I do like the fact that the ball drifts in behind those clouds, so we could assume those clouds are three different targets up in there. But there's just not much going on here. And again, it's a pinball machine for kids. If you're a kid, it would be fun.
There is animation in that.
You'll get messages, but it's not like what you're used to with like a digital readout, like you're used to the other pinball machines. Or where they try to simulate like what is that?
It's not like a DMD.
Yes, right. That's what I was looking for.
This is more like the pinball. The first pinball, is it Dreams?
But they still sort of tried to simulate it. They simulated the old school LED scoring system. Right. And this one just had it'll occasionally patch a little message at the bottom of the screen.
I think we weren't good enough to get a lot of those
I've seen those. They're not the same. That much said, I was telling Boat when we did the live stream, I sort of prefer the score down there. To me it was less intrusive. So that was actually I like to have seen them I like the LED, but again, it's for kids. They made it kind of cutesy looking for the kids. So there's that. So we're going to move on to the next pinball table, which was, James. I believe this was James, yeah. James, his table is hilarious. And the reason it's so funny is it's got all sorts of loops. Mm-hmm. Hey, I like loops, right? You will never hit these loops under any circumstances because it suffers from very similar problem, doesn't it, Bo?
Right. So the angles, well, first of all, some of the loops are just out of reach because you can't, or at least we were not able to hit the ball that far down the table. Like, even with a perfect shot, the ball just couldn't travel the distance that it needed to go. The loops that are within reach are positioned at the edge of the table at such a strange angle that your ball just will never want to go there. It's like when you go to a baseball game and you wonder why they don't have nets up in certain parts of the field, and they've done the geometry of it, and they say, well, the ball is just not going to come off the bat at this angle. That's the way these loops are. It's like you just can't physically hit the ball to them.
Now, loops, really weirdly placed loops or ramps in pinball, it's not super unusual. For example, I own the WWF Royal Rumble pinball machine, and the path to the upper ring playfield off the right-hand side is difficult to hit. Mm-hmm. It's a real awkward angle. You have to hit it really precisely. It's a real pain in the butt. That much said, if you hit the ball right, it will go there because you can get it there. The biggest problem with this, like Boat said, there are ramps, but even if you get the right angle, you're not only in this game do you have to hit the right angle, you also have to hit it with enough power to get it up in there, and it's just almost impossible to. You have to have luck. Mm-hmm. It has to come off a pop bump or something.
I almost was thinking about if there's any way that you can nudge the table forward, do like a combination like nudge hit to give it extra power or anything like that. So
I didn't see any. Was there an ability to tilt in this? Because I didn't. I hit the buttons and it didn't do it.
We didn't look at the controller.
Well, I did at home.
Did you? There was nothing there.
So anyway, that table was the worst one in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
It stinks. So we'll move on to the next one, which I believe is that Percy. The next one, Percy's table is colorful. It's got a wire trail coming off, which this looks a lot like. I own a game called Firepower 2. All right, you've played Firepower 2. Firepower 2 has a ramp to the immediate right of the lower playfield, just like this, that goes up and around and comes down into the ball lane, and it's exactly like this. So, I mean, the first time I played this, I'm like, oh, it's Firepower 2. Firepower 2 is better. I can tell you that right now. And again, I hate to sound repetitive, but this table is just like all the other ones. The ball is real heavy. There's a kind of a ramp above. It's sort of the upper middle or upper right area of the play field where you can hit the ball if you can get it up in there. There's a bank of targets up there that light. Percy is pulling his aforementioned huge tankard of milk, which we debated earlier if that's actually how you transport milk around. There's a bonus number bank up in the left. And you can build up a bonus if you can get the ball around the table enough to do it.
And it seems like as you progress through these tables, maybe it's just my imagination, but it seems like the chasm between the flippers just gets wider and wider.
It does have. I commented on this in a live stream for a. Well, you can tell just for people that aren't watching at home, you can tell the guy that was running through these had enough because he's hauling butt. The chasm. Doesn't really get wider, but it seems like it doesn't. And for a kid's game, it seems too wide. Mm-hmm. It seems too wide to be fair.
Yeah.
And like, there's what is that thing called? It's a center post, but the center post, it doesn't hit that often.
Yeah, I don't even think they put rubber on it. It's just like
This is the guy that runs this arcade's a real jerk.
Right.
Those guys that would remove that center post and stuff. It's like, we want the money, no playing.
That's right.
So anyway, Percy, hey, he's delivering milk. He's got that going for him. But, the last one is by far my least favorite of these trains. Toby, the boxy-looking nerd engine.
Hey, he's a trolley.
Yeah, whatever. He looks like a tool. So he's got a cow catcher, though. He's got that going for him. So Toby's table is sort of, well, I don't know. It's kind of brown. Are they going for a wood there?
Yeah, it's a wood grain finish.
Doesn't really look like that, does it? It just looks like it's tan.
Okay.
Does it look wood to you?
Well, it looks as wood as Toby does.
Well, fair point. So Toby has a crazy again.
This is my favorite table.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it looks the coolest. Now all these tables, kind of offer the same amount of replay value in that, like, you can't actually accomplish anything in there.
Yeah.
But like, I like the way that the upper part of the playfield, which you only get to see when your ball is shot. I like the way that it's laid out. I like the multiple, like that ramp right there. Like, that would be super cool if you could actually hit that.
For those not watching, there's a sort of a double ramp on the right-hand side of the screen, and then on the left-hand side, there's a ramp up to a loop into a wire return that comes down to the right to left ball return.
It seems modern. It seems like a layout you'd see on a real table.
I bet anything, all these are copied from pinball machines of that era. If I sat down and looked at them all, I bet I could find out which ones they were. Mm-hmm. This one, but look at those pop bumpers, for example. Just there's nothing on them, just brown. A lot of brown on that table. It's not visually appealing,
right?
Ponder this, if you will. This was released for the CD32, so you would go on the assumption of, hey, you got your AGA graphics. Here's our hot new game machine. Let's play some pinball. And you load this up. You're like, holy smokes! This is AGA.
You've also bought a game that's marketed for 3 to 6 year olds. So.
I know, and I will say the young kids market. They have been abused
Yeah.
by people that have made these games for many years.
And as far as kids games go, like games that are actually, I mean, you can argue that they're difficult, but I'd almost rather have a game that was too difficult than a game that was just total garbage.
Well, this game is not. I would say, how would you place this amongst the three we looked at?
The pinball against the other two?
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
It's definitely the worst.
It's
the game that has the least amount of fun in it.
And the thing is, and I'll tell you, and we've mentioned this before, we are not here to review games. We just tell you what we think. Mm-hmm. And if someone out there has information that they could and tell me, not just me and Bo, but everyone, all the comments I've heard about this, if there's some mystical line of code or an option, a hidden option where you can change that ball density, please, because I would like to give these a fair shake.
Yeah, I think that all the tables seem like they would be some amount of fun if you could just hit the top of it.
It's just amazing to me that you would release a product that's this flawed.
Right.
I mean, that's a big flaw because pinball's only got the ball. That's what you've got.
That's it.
And so that makes the rest of this stuff, and I'm sure they've spent time coming up with the rules for these machines and everything else, and it makes it all pointless. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, thumbs down for me on the pinball game. A real sort of a real disappointment.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of high hopes. And me and my kid played a pinball machine after Boat originally looked at this on the Amiga Plays. And he had a lot of fun with it at first, but I mean, he just was hitting the flippers and whacking the ball around, but he held his attention for about a half hour, and then he was just like, man. And then now he's older, because that was a while back, and he'll play proper pinball now. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't even give this a second thought.
Anybody that has played real pinball or a decent pinball game would not want to spend any time with this.
Yeah. So, I looked this one up on eBay. This is an interesting one. There were none on eBay when I checked. Mm-hmm. However, I did look at the history, and there were people selling these, and they had sold between $60 and $200 US.
Wow!
There were 3 copies sold at those prices. A couple were in the upper side of that. So, for whatever reason, it may be a rare CD32 title, and I can see why, because surely they couldn't have sold too many of these. But this thing's worth a few bucks on eBay anyway. So if you've got a copy, boy, I'll tell you what. If you're ever going to sell something just to make money, this is the game. Just get it out. So overall, I agree with Boat. This is the probably. I mean, I would say, I don't know. You like Thomas number 1 more than Thomas number 2, right?
Yeah. But I understand the things that you said, and you kind of won me over when you were talking about why you like the second one more. So.
Well, not to mention, now, if you're playing the second one solo, not as much fun. Mm-hmm. But, although you do race the computer, so I mean, effectively it's the same game. Right. I will say the first one's more attractive, right? But the second one for me is just more of a game, but really it's not much more. But still, both of them are more playable than the pinball game. So,
right.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Well,
a ringing endorsement from Thomas. Hey, on the flip side, before we close it out, if you've got a kid, and I'm guessing you've already watched them, if you haven't, let the kid check out Thomas. Inoffensive show, right? And now occasionally you'll get sent to the smelter. Mm-hmm.
Hey, nothing wrong with instilling a little fear in your kid.
Yes, sir. And try to catch the old ones that aren't computer animated. They get a lot creepier when the computer animation comes in, and a lot less attractive.
Yeah,
I mean, those real world special effects and stuff. Again, they're, whether you like kids shows or not, they're beautiful.
They are.
They're
really
quite well done. And I'm sure that there are other Thomas games released on other platforms that are probably pretty good. Mm-hmm. But the old Amiga, they got some, but they're not the best.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and thank all of our supporters, our Patreon fans that make this site possible, this podcast possible. I will name them all by name.
Well done.
Extemporaneously.
What does that mean?
It means off the cuff.
Uh-huh.
Like the lion.
So you're not gonna look at any notes at all?
I guess it's not really extemporaneously because I've got to look at the notes.
Yeah.
So I'd like to thank our man Alan Kebab. I'm gonna tell you everything I know about Alan Kebab.
All right.
His name is not really Alan Kebab.
No.
Okay. And I think he's from England. Then we got David McCrandles, originally from Scotland.
Scotland.
Now he lives in England. We've got Gary Hucker, who lives where?
Man, the myth, the legend.
Where do you remember where he lives?
Is he in New Zealand?
New Zealand
yes,
is
sir.
right.
And
Okay.
his massive collection of awesomeness down there.
That's right. He has a horde of Amigas.
Oh yes,
Will Williams,
the genius.
Yeah, the only staff writer located in the United States.
Yes, the D paint specialist.
Yep, the D paint specialist.
The art master.
Ravi Abbott.
Ravi, what a Renaissance man.
Yeah.
Good clothing taste.
That's right. That's right.
Runs a pretty darn good show.
Co-host of the Retro Hour.
Oh yes.
Kim Tommy Humbertstad.
What a name. He's not from around here, I'm guessing.
No. Kim. I think he told me that Tommy. I don't even think that's his. It's like his nickname because Kim is not a common name for man, here in the States.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever he's talking to people in the States, he refers to himself as Tommy.
Where's he at?
I think he's in Sweden.
Oh, nice.
But it might be Norway.
Yeah, you're going to be in trouble then, aren't you?
Josh Nan. I've got no information about Josh Nan.
He's the Nan.
Okay, he is.
He's the Nan. That's
Jason Warrens. What can we say about Jason?
What can we say about him? He's the man too.
We can say more than that.
What else can we say?
He made our S-Video adapter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought you were looking some personal stuff.
No. He's
a technical genius.
That's what I was going for. Lane, we have no information about Lane. So Lane...
How do you spell that?
L-A-N-E.
Lane.
Yeah.
He's a street.
Yeah, he might be.
It could be Stan Lane. Sweet Stan Lane to the Midnight Express.
Ooh.
That'd be awesome.
Recently elected to the WWE Hall of Fame, right?
That was the Rock and Roll Express.
They're all the same.
Just keep reading the names, Bo. Stop talking.
Eric Nelson.
Eric Nelson.
He's a cool guy. Lives in California. He's got an awesome retro setup in his room with a Vectrix.
Oh, I've got one of those.
Apple II GS. I know you've been lusting after one of those.
Look at you. So this guy's taking us to task.
Yeah. Graham Vebke. We like him a lot. He wrote us a spectacular review on. What did he write it on? It was on Medium. Just about the podcast he likes to listen to. Yeah. Paul Harrington. Boy, I wish we knew more about Paul.
Paul Harrington.
Yeah.
Come on, Paul. Slip us a bone here. We need to. Nan, you too.
Rob O'Hara. We know a little about that guy.
Flight Crazy. Hey, he actually put out a podcast.
Yeah.
I heard about that. It was good. It was good.
Laurent Giroux.
I just like hearing you say his name.
Yeah.
Laurent Giroux.
And I always thought that he was in France, but he's actually in Canada.
Because it sounds like a French assassin.
Right.
Here comes Laurent
Maybe
Giroux.
that's why he's in Canada. He's undercover.
So it makes sense.
Jonas Rulo. He is in Hawaii.
Are you kidding me? You're living like a king out there.
Yeah, he is.
Man.
Palm trees.
Why would you need podcasts?
I don't know.
The ocean is your podcast, right?
Kolbjorn Barman. And he said, the reason why I pronounce his name that way is because he instructed me to pronounce his name like Gimli would.
I love it. Where is Kolbjorn Barman?
He's got one of those O's with the line through it.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to say probably Iceland.
Slick. Wow, that makes sense too. The name.
Yeah.
It's like a barbarian. He's up there wearing skins.
Exactly.
He's got a big club. He's wailing on seals and crap. I love it.
Tapes from the Crypt.
Tapes from the Crypt. He's an interesting collector.
That great blog.
He's got a great blog, and I like any old VHS guys, which he is. That always amuses me. Although I'm getting ready to get out of business, but
are you liquidating?
I've got
the collection?
to. Oh, I haven't announced that yet, but there's a big announcement in my personal life coming up that involves me getting rid of a lot of my crap.
All right. Well, we will
I'll save that.
Save that one. Adam Bradley, we know him from, he's the guy that does the Vintage Computer Festival Southeast.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Which why we got to get to
one
it?
of these days we'll make it down to Atlanta.
Is this the one that's the one that's in Atlanta, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Atlanta is a pretty good town.
I've heard that. I've
had a lot of fun down there. I've went to some weird places down there, man, but not necessarily my cup of tea. But they've got a college area that's pretty fun. A lot of good shops. They have a good time down there too. So yeah,
we'll make it down there for a special live Amigos.
Oh my God! Can you imagine that?
That would be great.
They're all live.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like you're editing these hard.
Shh.
Very
careful editing.
Yeah.
Chris Folds.
Chris Folds.
That's all that needs to be said about that.
Enough said.
Daniel Bingston. We
The
need,
Bing.
The Big Bing. We need to
The
know
Bing.
more about you,
Ba, ba, ba,
Daniel.
boo, boo.
O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, home of just a fantasy land of all that is great.
I see his stuff up on Facebook, and it's a very odd mix of stuff.
He's anything retro in Norway you can find at his shop.
Yeah, we love O'Brien's.
Chad Halstead,
Chad, I don't know him.
no, but he's an amigo.
Chad.
Hat Chad, we call him.
He was right on board with a couple of these Thomas games, right? He did too, didn't he?
Yeah,
Was
well,
he on
he's
two?
my primary source of information about Thomas.
Oh, his son, anyway. Yeah, true.
And of course, your brother Brent.
Brent, he's a piece of work. This one, I
Yep.
just saw him earlier today, and he's up to no good.
And final, this name is always at the end from the time that we did Barracuda is the song. Brutal Barracuda.
I love
and
it.
Brutal Barracuda, I'm sorry that I misspelled your name on the credits, but I just haven't gone
How did
back
you
to fix
misspell it?
I spelled brutal wrong.
Bruh.
I was so I was so focused on spelling Barracuda
You
right.
misspelled brutal,
that I
eh?
misspelled brutal. So
Wonder how you come up with that moniker, Brutal Barracuda.
that's
You think he bit a dude?
you'll have to write in and let us know, BB.
Yeah.
We want to know.
Because barracudas have big teeth.
They do.
You know, maybe he's swimming in a pool.
You
saw a
wouldn't,
dude.
I mean, if you're going to write an adjective in front of Barracuda, I mean,
because
brutal is-
they're inherently brutal.
right. You're not going to have a gentle Barracuda.
No.
And we'd like to thank the Retro Gaming Network, which we got our Let's Play videos from. Also, World of Long Plays, Zeus Daz, all these guys that we borrow their videos to throw up on the live stream, or not the live stream, but the podcast if you're watching the video version. Make sure you check out their channels. They've got a lot of good stuff on there.
Oh yeah, they're a hardworking bunch. They've covered almost everything.
Right.
Yeah, there's very few things that you're not going to see that they did.
So next week, Aaron, this is going to be one of your picks. We're going to do Aqua Games.
Oh, Aqua Games! I can't wait.
Was that Flash Gordon?
That was
by
Aqua
Queen?
Lung. You know. Jethro Tull. Not a fan.
Is that this? Bam, 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 bam.
Well, it's better than that. But yeah, Aqua Lung. Aqua Games. We dipped our toe in the pool, and we want more.
Is this James Pond in the Aqua
That's
Games?
right. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm excited. I thought
What'd
it
you
was going
think
to
it
be
was?
some crap game.
No,
Well,
we remember we said we want to do a full show on this
That's
because we
true.
liked it so much.
Man.
And also it was kind of glitchy when we did it. We're gonna do it upright. Who suggested this back in the day? Was that O'Brien's?
Oh, I think it was O'Brien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I liked this more than the other games.
Yeah, me too.
Unfortunately, so
We're suckers for
I,
multi-event.
I grew up playing summer games and stuff, and man, I just love that crap.
Yeah.
Now maybe we'll go back and it stinks, so we'll have to see. But
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, we'll find out. Until next time.
Adios.